Hello to those joining.
Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give it about 30 seconds just to let people connect. Hope you're all doing well this morning.
Indeed. Got a great session lined up for you today with some really great panelists and speakers who will be introducing shortly. For those of you just joining, we're going to give it a minute or two just to get everybody on the call. We'll repeat it again when everyone joins, but if you do have any questions for our panelists today, please add them to the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. And we'll get to them at the end of the session.
And that's the joy of being live this morning, that we can take audience questions. And of course, this session is being recorded, so we will be sharing it in our weekly wrap, which is our newsletter that gets sent to all of our members and wider stakeholder group, and we'll also be promoting it on social. And if you've registered for this, you'll get a copy of the recording. Okay, let's kick off. We're 1 minute past. So welcome everyone to our webinar on the importance of diversity, equality and inclusion in the programmatic advertising ecosystem. My name is Helen Muzzard and I'm the CMO of IAB Europe, and I'm thrilled to open today's session as we delve into this vital topic that not only shapes our industry, but also enriches our workplaces and community. Now, most of you know, in programmatic advertising, innovation, connectivity, and probably the post-third-party cookie world are our lifeblood. However, to truly excel and foster sustainable growth, we must prioritize diversity, equality, and inclusion. And embracing this is not only a moral imperative, but it's also a strategic advantage that makes our industry more dynamic and appealing to a diverse range of talent. So for today's webinar, we've brought together a very distinguished panel of experts from our committee who will be sharing their wealth of knowledge and experiences. They're going to be exploring best practices and, most importantly, some actionable strategies for promoting DE&I within programmatic advertising and the broader digital advertising industry. Moderating this panel, you can see, is Wayne Tassie, who is the chair of the Programmatic Trading Committee here at IAB Europe. And he also has a day job, which is he is the Group Director of Integrated Solutions at DoubleVerify. Wayne brings extensive experience in this field and will guide us through an in-depth exploration. So I am delighted that he is here helping to navigate this subject. So before we begin, just like to remind everyone that as we're live, we're going to be taking questions. So you'll see that there's a little Q&A box that you can add your questions in, and then Wayne will pose those to the panelists at the end. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'm going to hand over to you, Wayne.
Thank you, Helen. I'm glad we finally got round to updating my picture there. I look a little less catfishy than my previous picture, which was, I think, a little bit pre-pandemic. Thank you all for joining us today. As Helen mentioned, she's done a great intro. My name is Wayne Tassie. I'm Group Director of Integrated Solutions at DoubleVerify and Chair of IAB Europe's Programmatic Trading Committee. Helen, just to flag quickly, we've just lost the visuals on here. So while we wait to get those up, I'm just going to introduce our panelists quickly and give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. There we go, we're back. Firstly, my colleague at DoubleVerify, Dana Zahavi. Sorry, Dana. I'll let you introduce yourself first of all.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm so excited. It's good to be here. I'm Dana. I'm a Senior Director of HRBP with DoubleVerify. I've been with the company for 8 years now, seeing it grown from a startup company to a full-blown corporate. And I support our tech offices across EMEA and also our offices in APAC from an HR perspective. Really, really happy to be here. Thank you, Wayne.
Yeah, very welcome. It's lovely to have you here today, Dana. Sim, would you like to introduce yourself? Oh, lost you for a second. There you are.
Me. Hi, good morning. My name is Payne Powell. I am one of the directors of people and the global head of DE&I at Index Exchange. I've been at Index for the last 3 and a bit years. It's gone so quickly, and in ad tech for the last 7. So it's really, really exciting. I get to look after our commercial orgs at Index as well as drive our DE&I strategy forward. So it's really, really exciting. I also wanted to do something, Wayne, if you don't mind. I wanted to describe myself for people that might be visually impaired or listening back to the recording. So as I said, my name is Payne Powell. I'm a woman of colour. I have short dyed red hair because I have a tween who makes me very grey. I wear glasses, and today I am wearing a white top with a lovely African print necklace. So thanks for that, Wayne.
I love it, Sim. Thank you so much. Nadia.
Oops. Hello, everyone. Hi, I'm Nadia Koski. I am the global head of content at ShowHeroes Group. We're a video ad tech company, global, based in Berlin. I'm based in Italy. I've been with the company for 4 years and in the ad tech space for 7, coming from the startup world, which is always exciting. And I also lead a lot of our DE&I initiatives within our company and our mentorship program, which was recently founded. So about myself, I am a very Nordic-looking American who now associates herself with basically being Italian after 20 years here, wearing a light blue shirt and short blonde hair and some makeup because we have to look presentable. Also have a 3-year-old, so very stressed and tired, but very happy to be here.
I love it. It's great to have you. I feel like I need to describe myself now. I don't even know where to begin. I'm very beady. I'm mixed race, English and Middle Eastern, of Jewish descent, long hair, straightened today. Yeah, so that's me in a nutshell. Thanks, Nadia. Appreciate it. Tamara.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tamara Pavlovic. I'm coming from Montenegro, and I'm data reporting analyst in Coines, a tech company based in Montenegro. I'm from a different field. I'm in tech, so I'm like a programmer more than data reporting analyst only, but I'm very enthusiastic in all diversity and inclusion approaches that we have in our company. So I'm a big enthusiast, and I'm so happy that I'm here today to share my insights. And I'm a brown girl who has 24 years and who has red glasses.
I love it. I love it. And Dana, do you wanna describe yourself quickly?
I can describe myself. Of course, I'm wearing a black t-shirt, and I have glasses, and I have blonde hair. But I wanted to say something else, to acknowledge something. And that is, some of us here on the panel, and I'm sure that listeners actually don't speak English as a first language. It's not our native language. It's not my native language. And speaking publicly in your second language requires an extra effort. And it feels important to acknowledge that. So thank you all for your efforts, and thank you to myself.
Thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As an Essex boy living in London, I speak English and bad English, and that's about it. So, hats off to all of you who are able to conduct business like this and do panels like this in a second language. I think it's fantastic. Should we kick off with our first question? And this is going to be to all of our panelists. Firstly, as a very proud member of the LGBTQI community, I'd like to wish everyone online listening in happy Pride Month. I'm going to ask each of the panels, and I'm going to call on each of you in turn. I'd like to know kind of, how have your respective companies been celebrating, educating, or supporting the global LGBTQI community as part of your DE&I initiatives? And we're going to start off with Sim.
Thank you. So at Index, we've done quite a few things for this month. We have an internal panel this week, actually, which is focused on fostering inclusivity in the workplace, and that's going to be hosted by Index Pride. We've got representatives that are going to join them from Index Black, Diversibility, and Index Women's. And then throughout the month, what we've been doing is we've been focused on internal Slack engagements, sharing stories and education with an LGBTQ plus focus, focusing in on benefits and what we can provide. And then social posts, sharing our indexer stories. The goal has been basically to educate our indexers and then everybody else around us. So
I love it. I've actually seen quite a lot of diversity posts from Index over the last few months. So no, that's really great to hear. Tamara, I'm gonna call on you next.
Yes, perfect. Actually, we at Coinist do not only have special initiatives this month, but we always do the initiatives in diversity and inclusion. And so we have all over our company internally those decorations that are related to LGBTQ plus community. And also we have some every 2 weeks workshops and trainings based on diversity, inclusion, and these initiatives that are incorporated in our company. So we had 2 workshops based on diversity and inclusion in last 2 weeks, and we just involved all an LGBTQ plus supporting systems. So, but we also provide mental health support and everything that is needed in our company for our colleagues. But I also must to address that is really tough topic to relate on based in Balkans. So we have to take into consideration that we live in a really, really traditional country, Montenegro. So we are trying to keep up with the LGBT community here and to find the right approaches to promote and to give them the right support.
Absolutely. And I think this is something that comes up, when I'm discussing this topic with lots of people. I think we forget that when we talk about diversity in Europe, by region, by sub-region, by market, diversity and inclusion can be very different. Like being a gay man in London, for example, is very easy compared to being, a gay man in other markets. And I think one of the challenges that companies face is how to put out that consistent message, globally or regionally, and ensure that, those markets are aligned with regional and global DE&I policies. I think that is something to consider. Would you agree?
Yes, I agree. And actually, I have to address that sometimes, and here the people who are LGBTQ plus are not in the position to go to represent themselves as they are, because they're the self of security, because we live in a traditional country. And so it's really hard to find the right approach, how you would give them support, but not crossing their boundaries. And so it's really, really, and I'm so happy that we're talking about this right now, because I feel like this is topic because when I went to USA, it was so easy to give the support, so easy to talk to people referring to my country, because sometimes I have to keep that. For some people, they want to be in secret for their own safety, and you cannot give them the right approach except for mental support and things like that. So it's really challenging, but I'm glad to say that we are improving it. We're getting better and better every year and every month.
Completely. And I think it's a key reminder of why we still need pride events, etc. It always drives me mad when people say, why do we need pride events? And I'm like, that's it's not your house burning down. Of course we still need pride events. There's no, that global equality is an ongoing process. And we've made lots of strides in the last 15, 20 years. When I came out in 1996, it was a very different time and place, and nobody knew gay people compared to where we are, nowadays, where I'm engaged and I'm marrying my partner next year. And I think, who would have ever thought that was going to happen? Thank you. Let me come on. Thank you for that, Tamara. Let me come on to Nadia.
So Pride is one of my favorite times of year, of course, emphasizing that it should be celebrated all throughout the year. Having gone to University in New York City. And coming from a small town in Connecticut, I was so overjoyed to be partaking in Pride. So many different friends that I had, and it was so fun. And coming to Italy, similar, it was not so inclusive 20 years ago, but I think we're getting much better. But as far as celebrating within ShowHeroes, we do something similar to Sim, what you were saying. We do a lot of awareness initiatives and a lot of also content sharing that opens up discussions. So right now we have a daily diversity digest where we're recommending documentaries, podcasts, books, music, films from the LGBTQIA+ community. And ShowHeroes is also a video editorial company. We produce premium video editorial in-house. So we always make sure to focus on creating this type of Pride content for all of our markets, which is available worldwide for all of our publishers. And we, of course, really push it this month. And what's great, especially in Europe, Pride is celebrated depending on the country in various months. So not just relegated to June, but actually June, July, and August, whether it's the German or the Dutch or, the other EU markets. And another thing is that we have such great regional marketing managers that really push these initiatives as well. So big shout to Jose, our regional marketer for Hispanic LATAM. She did a lot of really fun things with the Hispanic LATAM teams and encouraged everyone to go to the Pride initiatives. And we actually have impact days, so once per quarter. And if you decide to partake in these types of initiatives, you can just flag that and let our HR team know. And you have an impact day where it's counted as a work day, but you don't have to take vacation, for example. So I think that's really cool that we have the flexibility to allow people to celebrate like that.
I love that. And it always, when I hear things like that, I think, how privileged are we in our industry to be able to run those type of initiatives and get our team members involved. I think, you made a great call out there. Pride isn't just, related to June. I always have the dilemma of whether I want to go to Amsterdam Pride or Brighton Pride in August. Still kind of toying with both of them, and they're both great fun. And also we have Pride events, in Gran Canaria, etc., and globally, later in the year as well. So Nadia, I'll check out those videos. Thank you for sharing. And Dana.
Happy Pride. Pride is near and dear to me, being a proud sister and a proud niece. So I'm always happy to celebrate Pride. At DV, it's a mixture of content, activities, and celebrations. Our Proud at DV ERG launched its first newsletter earlier this month, sharing the ERG's theme for the year, which is Forward Together. So the idea is to actively advocate for inclusive policies and move us one step closer to a future where diversity is not just acknowledged, but really, really celebrated. So our ERG put together priorities that include, among others, fostering a community among LGBTQ+ employees and allies, of course, by maintaining a welcoming and inclusive environment and advocating for policies and benefits to support the retention and advancement of the community and the allies, of course. So for example, making sure HR policies and documents such as employee handbook use inclusive language. So not just saying partner, really saying same-sex partner or domestic partners, because words matter. We are hosting speakers, workshops, like training managers about unconscious biases, which we will talk about more later, charity activities in our offices across the world with partners such as Stonewall, One Sandwich at a Time, and LGBT Tech, many, many others. And of course, we also celebrate with colorful happy hours, swag, flags, whatever, you name it. So we have everything.
Absolutely love it. We actually had a Pride party at the London office recently, which was great fun. It's interesting. I've been at DV for 6 years, and one of the big reasons that I'm here is, I can be my authentic self at work, and I'm sure you can relate to this in different ways. when I interview for jobs, for example, I always ensure that I mention my partner, Jason, etc., because I always feel like, and just to caveat, I'm not interviewing for any jobs at the moment, Dana. Just saying.
Noted.
I'm just saying that when I have done in the past, I've always felt that I had to disclose my sexuality because I don't want to work for a hiring manager that has a problem with it, so it gives them an out to begin with, and B, I want to be my authentic self at work, and I would never want to work for any organization that didn't respect me or my life choices, and who I am as a person. And I've been at DB for this long because, they don't just embrace me, they embrace my partner as well. He's been invited along to many different events. We when it comes to paternity leave and maternity leave, it doesn't matter, what your sexual orientation is. Everything is equal. And it's been incredible. And there are so many people in our London office specifically who, identify as LGBTQI, etc. And, we can just be ourselves. And I think that's a really incredible thing. And I think looking at the ad tech industry as a whole and the digital industry and the programmatic industry, I think we're, again, very privileged that we are, so forward thinking and, ahead of the curve compared to other verticals, etc. And I think before I move on to the next question, I think it's really important to shout out to, the other diversity and inclusion months that are coming up. For example, Black History Month is in October. We celebrate Latin America month, which I can't remember which one it is. We've done sessions on accessibility, internally. I think all of these things are just so important for organizations, and sessions like this where we hear from amazing panelists like yourselves about what your company's doing just make me feel like there's real hope, for the future, and that we're, with everything else that's going on in the world, we're all heading in the right direction as an industry. I'm going to go on to the next question and call on a couple of you. If anyone wants to interject on the panel, please raise your hand and I will come to you. So my next question actually feeds in quite nicely around recruitment. Diversity and inclusion in the workplace can be challenging at the best of times. How do we find balance and prioritization in DE&I when recruiting across career verticals such as programmatic, where talent and strong candidates can be scarce to begin with, can be difficult at the best of times? And I'm going to start with Tamara on this one.
Yeah, actually, this is the one that we addressed in our company a few years ago. So we started to do the inclusive onboarding. So developing an onboarding process that emphasizes how our company commitments to DE&I, but then and makes everyone, like you said before, makes everyone feel welcome and included from day one, from the beginning of that hire process. So the thing is that we're now having, when we're talking about women in tech in general, because Coin is a tech company and we're based in Montenegro, and we have teams separated in like marketing and tech, and it was really challenging to find the women who were willing to work in tech industry, in that related field. And now we are at the point that we have like near 59% of women in general in Coinis, and that was really to the open conversation, finding the right onboarding process, and emphasizing how D&A is really important to us. So we did a lot of mentoring sessions, and a lot of these activities, including the Coinis as a company, but also our nearest ICT Cortex, that is few companies, organization of few companies. So we had like speed mentoring sessions with young girls who want to get into tech and things like that. So we're always trying to find new ways to like make everyone feel welcome from day one.
I think that's really key. And I think, one of the things to really highlight here is, you know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later, is getting more women into, you know, the workforce when it comes to kind of DE&I, and especially within tech. You know, we're massively underrepresented, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole just yet because we've got a whole section on that coming up. Sim, I'm going to call on you.
Yeah, when you sent the question through, and I was like thinking about it, and you know, there has to be a balance in recruitment when it comes to DE&I, especially when it's a niche field like ours, programmatic. I remember when I got my first job in programmatic all those years ago, I'd worked in tech 20 years at that point. I'd never heard of it. So I feel like we require more of a strategic approach. We need to start broadening our talent pools by like partnering with, you know, professional organizations like Brixton Finishing School or educational institutions. We need to kind of start early. And Index is kind of working towards that currently, but there's so many kind of other initiatives that we can put in place as we're starting to recruit for people. So we can like have blind resume reviews, we can have diverse hiring panels. What we've also done internally is start to look at upskilling and mentorship of our talent. So we have a program called Lead that we run. And what that was focused on was kind of ramping up like a diverse cross-section of employees that have recently been promoted to managers across the business. Because what we're trying to do is make sure that we retain those people and that they stay with us. And that's a big, big thing. You know, you're talking about being your authentic self, allowing people to become managers and allowing them to be their authentic selves as they do that, and coaching them how to do that is huge. And I think one of the last things I would say is basically setting some metrics for yourself. I feel like a lot of companies, we dive straight in, we want to do what's right, but actually we're not measuring it.
Yeah.
I think like to be able to hold ourselves accountable and to continue to grow, we have to set those DE&I metrics up. It doesn't matter if you're a company of 10 or a company of 20,000, you know, if you've aligned with a goal, then at least you know that you're working towards it. Everybody that works for you can see that you're going towards that, and it means so much.
Amazing, definitely. And I can see, Dana, you're raising your hand.
Yeah, I raised my hand just when Tamara spoke because it really resonated with me. When I started at DV in our Tel Aviv office, it was 20 engineers and me, 20 male engineers and myself. So, you know, I have many years of experience recruiting on the tech side, roles in product and engineering, where we encounter similar challenges that were raised. So if you look at the pipelines, if you look at the market, if you look at the schools, you see how underrepresented groups, well, are underrepresented, right? Also, at the same time, I do want to say that we also need to consider that sometimes we are so used to that assumption, we continue to operate in ways that maybe feeds it. So what I think, and to kind of echo what my partners here shared, what companies can do is to try to make sure that they tap into underrepresented talent at earlier stages. So not just after candidates apply for the jobs. So partner with agencies, associations, nonprofits, other organizations that focus on working and advancing these groups. For example, making sure that job descriptions, job posts have inclusive language or highlight important facts that could speak to specific groups. Make sure that hiring managers and teams go through proper training. Again, for example, unconscious biases. Partner with high schools and colleges for exposure programs and internships. So all these are important things that companies can do. But after all is said and done, I believe that the real change will come through education and paving the way for children from an early stage. So providing opportunities, exposure, and knowledge, investing in teaching programs, making sure teachers are well compensated and well educated themselves, making sure that kids from wherever they are get equal opportunity. So we want to strive to create a world where inclusion and diversity are embedded in how future generations operate. So it becomes a given.
Completely. And I can see that, Nadia, you're raising your hand as well. And I was actually going to come to you and ask you a little bit as well about, you know, areas of DE&I that are still underrepresented to kind of carry on this dialogue in programmatic and digital. And yeah, tell me your thoughts on this. How can companies and recruiters and managers listening in address this underrepresentation of part of their DE&I best practice?
Absolutely. Two quick points that I can align with on what everyone just said was the education and the mentorship, because if you do get a wonderful person in and they just don't feel like they belong, or they don't have that allyship within the company, they're not going to stay. So that is a big one. And also the language that you do use. So just really simple things, you know, like if you're looking for a tech position and you're using words like assertive and competitive, you might be more, maybe without realizing it, focusing on male candidates, and women are really attracted to words like collaborative and supportive. But yeah, regarding underrepresented groups in programmatic, you know, we're looking at positions like senior programmatic account managers, SVP of media analytics, data analysts. And it does tie back to getting people on at an early age, and especially young girls raising a young daughter. I can see this immediately. I mean, I think we've all heard of girl math, right? Which drives me nuts. And, you know, there's the Female Quotient did a study also about how little girls at the young age of already 7 don't believe they can actually go forward and do whatever they want to do, or that they can't become president or data analyst or an astronaut or whatever. So I think that when we have to look at how we're going to get those underrepresented groups in tech and in digital and programmatic, for sure, education, repeating that, but that goes from the recruitment process to our executive level. If you don't have your executive team on board with this, it's going to be very hard pushing this through. So you need to have everyone at the top that is willing to go all in on this. And I can't emphasize that enough, because you can be fighting and working your way through all sorts of initiatives, but if you don't have the buy-in from the top, it's going to be very difficult. And how do you get buy-in? I mean, we should all be saying this is the good thing to do, but it does get tied to revenue as well, unfortunately. And there are so many studies out there that confirm that if you have a more diverse team, you have more innovation, you have higher revenue. There was a great internal study that L'Oreal did a few years ago that looked at that and found that if you had 30% more women, in this case women, not necessarily looking at all underrepresented groups, but in general, 30% more women in your decision-making power, you have 15% more revenue. So it's like a no-brainer, right? And then that goes also into company culture, making sure that once people get in, like I was saying, they really are aligned and feel like they belong. They're free to share their flexible work hours. They're, you know, they feel safe to talk about and negotiate parental leave, mentioning their engagement in various initiatives, whether that's Pride or Black History Month or whatever it is. And that is wholly acceptable. One other thing that I'd like to mention is that in the recruitment process, it's so, you know, tying back to the talent pools, go to those places where you might not be looking directly. So for example, ShowHeroes, we go specifically into job posting platforms that cater to the LGBTQIA plus community, you know, women in programmatic posting and the Women in Programmatic Network. So it's all about getting those applications out and those positions out to people specifically in those groups from the get-go.
Completely. I think that top-down approach is key. I think, you know, everything you've said, like, it just all ties together. Everyone needs to buy into it. You know, that fosters a positive company culture. And I think, you know, I love working in a diverse office. I wouldn't, you know, we all know there's certain industries that are very heavily skewed towards one demographic or another. I cannot imagine anything personally worse than working in that kind of siloed environment. It just, you know, for me, it does nothing for me. And I think diversity recruitment in itself is really key. And I always struggle with companies who kind of feel like, you know, we don't really need to do this. We can get the right candidates by going through all of the usual channels. It's also about accessibility to these roles. I mean, I think one of you mentioned like Brixton Finishing Academy earlier on. What an amazing initiative that is. And look how the popularity, you know, etc. around it. And for those of you who don't know, Brixton Finishing Academy basically makes roles accessible to young people for multiple industries and companies who wouldn't usually have access to those roles, and they help upskill and educate and really like open doors. And if you haven't come across them before, please check them out online. They're an amazing initiative. This kind of brings me, you know, let's talk about our panel first of all. I think first of all, it's amazing that we have, you know, 4, you know, women in tech on our panel today. And I think, you know, that should definitely be celebrated. And I, you know, myself recently had the privilege to be part of the Bloom UK Co-Mentor Exchange Programme. For those of you that don't know what this is, Bloom UK match up industry-leading women with male execs to discuss the gender debate. And I think I need to give a really big shout out to my good friend and co-mentor, Harpreet Kalar at Programmatic, as I learned a hell of a lot from her on this program, and she challenged me in so many ways. And for those of you that don't know Bloom UK, please check them out as well. I think, you know, they're very upworthy organization. And I think, you know, talking about women and female diversity, I think we're going to dig into this a little bit more. And I've got a question for each of our panelists. And I'm going to come to Sim first. Sim, we want more women in senior roles, but do we promote enough from within our organizations?
I think there's more work to be done. There always is more work to be done. I mean, look, at Index, we're focused on creating opportunities for all. We focus on right person in right role. But I am so proud of the fact that we have so many senior women that are director level and above within the organization at the moment. And I think all of this has been driven by like internal movement and promotion. We empower people to be able to do their jobs. You talked about flexible working earlier. We talked about enhanced parental leave. We have all of those things to kind of maintain and ensure that people can get that balance right. You know, we hear a lot. I was on a panel for Bloom a couple of months ago where women take breaks, they lose their career. There was a thing that came out where if women wanted to catch up to men with regards to pension, they'd have to start saving for their pension at 3 years old. And that freaked me out. It actually freaked me out. So like what we want to do is try to enhance and empower our female leaders so they're able to do their jobs and able to stay in and be promoted. It's what we've talked about, building that culture, making sure that people can be authentic, making sure that people feel secure enough to be able to ask for when they need something so we can support them within that. You know, I feel like we've given a chance to make people more comfortable and be more secure in asking for things. And I really can't wait to see like what the next few years bring us as like we have more people that are going through, as I've mentioned, that lead program and the training that we do for that next evolution of senior leaders, senior female leaders that we get.
Absolutely, and it always drives me over when I talk to companies and they go, yeah, we need more senior women, you know, in roles within our organization, and yet they do not promote from within. It starts at the grassroots. You know, if you take on graduates or execs and you know you don't promote women up through the ranks and retain good talent, then it is much harder to just go, right, you know, we're going to recruit for this role and we're just going to find, you know, a very small amount of people that happen to be female and we're going to try and shoehorn them into this role. You know, from my perspective, I think it definitely comes from promoting within. And I think as an industry, we're definitely getting better at this, but I think there's work to be done. As a hiring manager, I've had women who have interviewed with me, you know, in the past and have, you know, like me, when I come across and say, you know, I'm gay and, you know, I've got my partner, etc., they feel compelled to say, you know, I don't have a partner, I have no plans to have children, or I've already had children and I've got no plans to have another, because, you know, I think it just makes me sad that we still live in a world where that happens, when, you know, our jobs are amazing and we all love our work, but our work is not our life. Life goes on and people have lives outside of work in the industry. And I think it is so important that we embrace this. And I think over the last few years, I've definitely, you know, personally seen improvements in this area from lots of different companies. I speak to friends out in the industry and they're like, our maternity policies are much better than they used to be, and our paternity policies they've brought in, you know, it's great to see that dads are able to take time off as well. And you know, I've got friends at work who are about to go on pat leave, and you know, they're supporting their spouses and their kids so that they're not at home all the time and they can actually go out and have a life while they're taking their mat leave. I think all of these things are really important and we should embrace them.
We can't express in like an hour how important this one thing is. I remember when I joined Index and I had my interview, you saying that and saying to my boss, like, my son's neurodiverse and I'm going to need to take appointments and I'm going to have to flex around if he gets up and he's having a great day, or if he gets up and he's having a really, really bad day. And the first thing he said was, that's fine, we make it work, you know? And I think just being able to have those conversations, it goes so far.
Absolutely. I mean, we could do a whole session on neurodiversity. I've got, you know, neurodiverse members of my family who, you know, talk to me about accessibility in their workplaces and the struggles that they face. And it's great to hear, you know, that your organization does support this and supports you in this remit. Dana, you know, are there still challenges around unconscious bias towards women, you know, based on what I'm saying? You know, how would you expand on that?
Well, we don't know what we don't know, right? And this is exactly how unconscious bias works. So we are unaware of them. And I think this is why it's super important to maintain the conversation about it and make sure we constantly address the issue. So never assume we are done working on it, and always think about a camel. Why a camel? Thank you for asking. And this is one of my favorite phrases, loosely translated from Hebrew, because camels do not see the hump on their backs. So, you know, even without going into specific examples around unconscious biases towards women, we always need to think about the hump that we do not see. Because let me tell you, sometimes what you do see is very, very problematic. So for example, women being asked in interviews if they are planning to have children, or how they handle their childcare to make sure that they're free to work. So, you know, if this is what we still see and experience, can you imagine what we are blind to? IFA magazine recently shared that according to research, 30% of people in the UK experience unconscious bias in the workplace. That's almost a third. That's amazing. So I would say, yes, there are still challenges around unconscious biases towards women. However, echoing what you said, I do see change in the ad tech industry. And the more we talk about it, educate about it, use objective metrics to measure performance, and put in place policies that will help level the field, for example, around childcare and pay equity, then we will be able to address these biases, bring them up to our attention, and really reduce them. Wayne, you're on mute.
I'm on mute. I had a police car going past. Apologies. Thank you, Dana, for that. And thank you for letting me know I was on mute. I could have gone on there for ages. I'm going to come to Tamara next. Tamara, are we addressing gender pay equality effectively?
That's a tricky one. Actually, I think that we're like that's an ongoing process, but we're still having a lot of work to do, and that relates to the first question that you asked, Sim. So we need more like women in senior roles, the ones whose voice will be heard and who will actually talk about women's needs and everything that they and their life perspective and work-life balance when talking about paternal leave and things like that. But here in ADEC industry, I see the improvement because we are doing like performance-based increases and tracking of work and things like that. So we have those inside our company, but that's still not the topic that there's a lot of room and a lot of space for things to be done, but we have to address it more often. And so we have to take care about those needs of women and retention rates and paternal leaves and everything that is up to in this industry. For right now, I'm really optimistic and I'm glad of the KPIs that we are referring in our company, but overall in tech, especially when we're talking again in Montenegro, in a traditional environment, I'm not content with the movement that is shown here.
Do you think there are challenges around women asking what they're worth when they interview for jobs compared to their male counterparts?
Yes, that's the big one. Especially I've read some analysis and research papers, and I think that there is like 70% of women would not ask for the salary and everything in the first job interview, apart for like 90% of men will do.
Yeah.
So that was the one research I read like a few months ago, and I was like shocked. Okay, so we are not we are not aware of our worth, and we are like I think afraid of asking.
It doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't surprise me just based on conversations that I've had with female colleagues. And I think, you know, as hiring managers, I personally think it's our duty to make sure that if you have multi-gender teams, that there is pay parity between people who are doing the same jobs. And we all need to be accountable for this. And if you see a gap, you need to be calling it out to your organization. Nadia, you got your hand raised.
Yeah, one thing on that is it's a double-edged sword, I think, because it's, you know, as you were saying, Tamara, like 70% aren't confident enough to ask for that raise to begin with. And those that do, they're seen as too ambitious, or they're seen as, oh, she's asking a little bit too much. So it is, I hate to say it, it's almost like a no-win situation sometimes, that you have to really play well. And of course, going back to understanding what company culture you're getting into, I think informing yourself really well about how the company runs and how it really values its employees. So yeah, just to add that, go for it and research how much you're worth. So what position are you doing now? And go out in your industry, in your country, because, you know, country pay levels vary. Go find out exactly how much that is. You can do that on Glassdoor. I've done it myself. And you can really understand what it is that this particular role is receiving as a salary. And when you go in with that research and that knowledge, it's going to be pretty difficult for a manager to say, oh, you know, like to go back on that, because those are the numbers right there.
Completely. And, you know, there is that unconscious bias piece. And I think, you know, you bring up a really key point there. It's the same as when, you know, a male counterpart is assertive, whereas a woman, you know, asking is potentially bossy or, you know, challenging. And these are things, again, it goes back to that unconscious bias piece and things that we need to address. So Nadia, let me expand on that and ask you, do some companies avoid the topic as it is deemed too divisive to address directly?
There might be some, but they're not very smart companies, I don't think, right? Because we were just discussing, right? If you have a more diverse team, you have more innovation, you have higher revenue. It's a really easy win. So there may be some that don't address it, but I think today you really cannot afford to not address it. It was you know, diversity was a huge topic at Cannes last week. And it's something that every company needs to look at, especially now with the younger generations coming in. So Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming up, they don't take anything less of equality, you know, as the base level. So if you want to be hiring great people, and especially in these younger generations, you need to be addressing these issues, showcasing that you are supportive. And Gen Z and Gen Alpha even is the most diverse generation yet, right? We're looking at so many mixed people. I mean, I look at my daughter again, like she's Russian, Hungarian, Finnish, and Italian, and she's growing up in 2 different countries, basically. And she is going to have way higher expectations of, you know, acceptance, inclusivity, flexibility. And if you're really wanting to, you know, succeed as a company and hire those really top-notch talents, this is something that you have to address, and it's no longer a nice to have.
Yeah, completely agree. We've actually had a question from the audience, and it actually ties in quite nicely with the next topic that I'm going to ask, because I think, you know, we've asked the smart questions. I think we also need to ask some of the difficult questions. And the question that's come in is the fact that inclusion has become the right thing to do in the corporate world is an important step forward, but many companies still only pursue DE&I to stave off potential criticism, or, you know, because of the promise of increased revenue, as we've discussed. And they go on to talk about, you know, how do we foster, you know, a sincere appreciation of diversity in the office. My question also is this, you know, does DE&I need to have a more balanced approach? And if so, what needs to change? So, for example, we have an all-female panel today, which, you know, I personally applaud, you know, as many of the topics we've covered today, you know, show that we need more representation of women in ad tech. Others listening in, you know, may feel excluded as they themselves are potentially earmarked as not ticking enough diversity boxes. So what are your thoughts on this? And I'm going to come to Sim first.
Yeah, but when we lean into DE&I, the one thing we want to strive for is balance. We can't go too far one way and then leave everything else behind. I love the fact that we're celebrating the milestone of having like an all-female panel. To me, that is really, really amazing. But like, you know, working in DE&I and doing all the things that I do, it's crucial to me to ensure that no group feels excluded and no group feels unfairly treated. I feel like to have that balance and for people to understand, you really have to have clear and transparent communication. That goes back to that DE&I strategy that I spoke about before. That goes back to just literally talking about and having those cascades and everybody being trained and understanding. I think with the clear communication, the goals, and understanding the benefits of why we're doing this and why like diverse representation matters, I think you can help to mitigate some of the feelings that come, the people feeling like, you know, reverse discrimination, this is a really, really bad thing. I think, look, ultimately, DE&I needs to aim to create an environment where everybody feels valued. We've been speaking about this whole time. We just want to create spaces where we're fostering a great culture. We're fostering a place where people feel respected. And as you said, Wayne, where you can come to work and be your authentic self. So we're not trying to minimize or take away from anybody else. We're just trying to make sure that we create that balance. That's the goal.
I completely agree. And I think it's going to take time. And if you think how heavily we're leaning in this direction and have been for the last few years, I honestly feel over the next few years it'll readdress itself and we will find that balance again. But I completely agree. In the meantime, you kind of need to carve out those spaces to make sure that, you know, those who have been underrepresented for so long feel represented, and then, you know, we can move into a place where everybody is represented fairly and equally. I'm gonna also ask this question. Tamara, do you want to lean in on this?
Yes, I will be really short, but I actually just have to say that while celebrating and promoting all the underrated groups is really crucial, it is important on the other side to adopt and balance to have balanced approach in D&I, and so that everyone feels like included and validated and can be their true selves. But actually, so the topic, like you mentioned, the woman in tech is not a topic about the woman, it's also a topic for men, and so we don't have we can't be like excluded in that way, but actually just making everybody comfortable and safe in these spaces. And this talk and this topic is actually the point, so everyone should be validated and feel safe.
I think that's the key, you know, feeling safe and feeling included and feeling, I think representation also, people just feel like they're not seen, and, you know, we all need to be seen. Dana, did you want to lean in on this?
Yeah, I just, everything you all said is on spot. I wanted to add, we talked about education. That's, again, a big part of it. And I think two-way feedback. So not just telling people, but also listening to feedback. But I think one of the key things is having objective metrics. So whether you measure performance or make decisions around promotion, raises, other opportunities in the business, it's really important to have those metrics in place, and also to constantly evaluate your D&I objectives. What are we aiming to achieve? And that might change after a while. Measuring your achievements, measuring the impact, and understanding what is the next step that you want to reach.
Yeah, absolutely. Nadia, thank you. Nadia's also recommended a book that we should all read by Caroline Criado Perez, called Invisible Women, which delves into the gender bias and data gap that exists still today for women to thrive. So thank you for that, Nadia. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to jump on to the next question very quickly. For those that are in global roles, Sim and Nadia, how does DE&I differ in Europe compared to other regions, and how do you ensure consistency across all markets? Sim, come to you first.
It varies significantly depending on the culture. We've been speaking about culture. We've been kind of speaking about legal terms, societal differences. In Europe, I see more of a focus on gender equality and data privacy. In other regions, I see more of a focus in like racial and ethnic diversity. When it comes to APAC, there's a lack of LGBTQ focus. So like every region has a nuance and is slightly different. What we're trying to do right now is focus on consistency across global markets, but have a flexible framework that allows us to kind of customize by region. I want us to always uphold one of our key core values, which is support each other. And that's why we allow that flex and we build the framework so we can flex around it. We've spoken about global training, we've spoken about sharing best practices, and then regularly reviewing strategies, as Nadia and everybody have said, like we have to do that so we can address our needs locally, and make sure that anything that we're doing and we're looking at, our efforts kind of resonate universally, and we're kind of respecting all of the regional nuances. So all the regions that we're in, we know that we have limits of what we can do in some regions, but we'll do as much as we can to make sure that people feel that they have the support of the company when they join us.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that we need to be really cognizant of is for many companies, when they're opening offices in these emerging markets, that DE&I is factored in to whether we want to and whether we should be operating in person in those markets, because some markets are very challenging and can be very divisive in these areas. And again, going back to something Nadia was saying earlier on, often it comes down to the profitability and the money, etc., and the revenue. But that does, for me, create a bit of a moral debate as you know, just because it's going to make money, does it make it right? And that's kind of a key question. Tamara, I'm gonna actually no, I'm gonna come to Nadia on this very quickly, and then we're going to finish off with a quick fire question.
Yeah, Sim, you hit every single point that I had. So I really don't have much to add, just that we're seeing this as well in our global company. You have to be very aware and sensitive about what's actually happening in that market. So yes, for a cohesive global communication of what is expected, what we adhere to, what our core values are. But then you do have to look at each region specifically to cater and maybe do specific programs on different levels that will make everyone feel comfortable and safe to participate. So yeah.
Thank you.
Brava. Exact response. Ditto.
We're going to come to a very quick fire round before we close off the session, and I'm going to ask each of you in turn, what would you like to see in terms of progress in DE&I over the last 12 months? Dana.
First, okay. Well, I think that one of the important things we should focus on is intersectionality. So cultivate an understanding of intersectionality and the fact that people's identities and experiences of discrimination are shaped by multiple interconnected factors, such as race, gender, class, but absolutely not just. So developing the understanding that identity is a complex notion that is way beyond society's criteria and has, you know, it includes psychological, mental, and emotional aspects as well. That life events, political events, traumas, all can have an immense impact on one's identity, sense of safety, belonging, and feeling included. So to me, this is an important aspect of DE&I that I would like to see emphasized.
Thank you, Dana. Tamara?
Okay, for me, the main thing is to make our space enough safe for everybody. So I'm hoping that every underrated group and every group of people inside our company will have the freedom of speech and to stand up for themselves and organize activities that are promoting their and speaking up about their problems inside of our companies with our full support. That is related to Montenegro and Balkans and everything. And I hope that we are going to break this traditional barriers.
I love that. Thank you so much. Nadia?
We touched on this a little bit earlier, but the measurement is key, but also having that sense of belonging. You can create all sorts of initiatives, all sorts of communication plans, but at the end of the day, if you don't understand from your people if this is working, if they feel good, if this is helping them thrive in their professional and maybe even personal lives, then you are just checking a box. You are just saying, we did this, now it's done. So measuring and understanding the sense of belonging that people receive from any type of DE&I initiative, I think is absolutely key. And yeah, measurement to understand if that's actually happening.
And actioning upon it in an appropriate way is kind of, yeah, absolutely. And Sim, yourself.
I would say historically, Programmatic has been very insular. I think it still is. Everybody knows everybody. That's kind of how you get your next role and your next job. So like my goal and what I'd love to see over the next 12 months are more things like this, more connection, more conversation, more partnering with companies, letting everybody know about Programmatic and opening it up to people that didn't know it existed. We have to be open to ensure that we are attracting key talent, because key talent is not always in our immediate network. And I think that's a big job, and we still have some work to do on it.
Absolutely. Dana, Sim, Tamara, Nadia, it's been an absolute honor and a privilege talking to all of you today. Thank you for sharing your insights, your inspirations, and, you know, challenging this topic. For those of you listening in, I'm Tassie, Chair of IAB Europe's Programmatic Trading Committee, and we really, you know, appreciate your time, taking time out your day to listen in and join the debate and the conversation. So to our panelists, thank you all, and to our audience, Absolute pleasure. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Mhm.
you.
Take care.
Cheers.